Evelyn Marrow stood at the edge of a rugged coastal cliff, where the moody fog blended with the crashing of relentless waves. The cursed cove, known to the local villagers as Devil's Cove, whispered secrets of a past steeped in sorrow, despair, and tortured memories. In the fading light of a crimson dusk, every stone, crevice, and ancient ruin seemed imbued with an eerie energy, a relentless force hinting at mysteries that transcended ordinary life. Her heart, heavy with ancestral guilt and yearning for answers, pounded with quiet determination as she began her perilous journey into the depths of legend and time. Beneath the grey skies of the late 19th century, when superstitious beliefs painted the world with the hues of uncertainty and dread, the rugged coastline of Devil's Cove was cloaked in an atmosphere of unfathomable melancholy. The chilling winds carried echoes of forgotten voices, and each crashing wave narrated a tale of unfulfilled promises. Evelyn's every step echoed the legacy of her family's storied past, stirring up old secrets and long-buried memories that would soon intertwine with the haunting presence lingering over the cursed shores. In the waning light of a day that stubbornly refused to surrender to night, Evelyn found herself drawn to a dilapidated mansion that held the keys to her fragmented history. Its weathered facade and ancient charm belied the tumultuous events that occurred within its walls. Here, the dusty corridors and creaking floorboards whispered tales of lost love, regret, and the incessant pull of duty that bound her bloodliners to the spectral force that haunted the nearby shoreline. Each echoing step was a pilgrimage to reclaim a past shrouded in sorrow and unresolved mysteries. The mansion, perched precariously near the cliffs, was a silent witness to decades of despair and forgotten hope. As Evelyn roamed its labyrinthine corridors, the air grew thick with the scent of damp wood and decaying parchment, relics of a bygone era. Every room stained with memories and punctuated by the occasional gentle murmur of the past, told a story that was both deeply personal and universally tragic. Here, in the interplay of shadow and light, the boundaries between the tangible and the spiritual blurred, inviting her to follow a trail of enigmatic clues that promised redemption at a steep cost. With every step deeper into the mansion's heart, Evelyn felt the inexorable pull of a force that seemed almost sentient in its sorrow. She discovered an ancestral journal, its pages filled with cryptic symbols and heartfelt confessions, hinting at a curse that had dogged her lineage for generations. The elegant yet melancholy script spoke of ancestral transgressions and unspoken bargains with forces beyond mortal ken, each word etched with the weight of regret and the hope for absolution. In these inked words lay the key to unlocking both the mystery of the cove and the darkness that haunted her soul. Outside the mansion, the relentless Atlantic crash landed against the jagged rocks, its roaring chorus echoing the tempest that had long since calmed in the depths of the cursed cove. As twilight deepened, Evelyn's thoughts churned like the tides, pulling her into a sea of memories that were as treacherous as they were tender. The landscape, bathed in the subtle interplay of diffused light and creeping darkness, seemed to conspire with the ancient legends of the land. Every gust of wind carried a tale of broken promises and eternal yearning, etching the relentless truths of the past into the very fabric of the night. In the village near the cove, whispers of an otherworldly presence had persisted for decades, growing into a tapestry of myth and cautionary lore. Locals spoke reverently of Captain Silas Crow, a tormented soul bound to the cursed shores, whose spectral figure prowled the coastline in search of vengeance for sins etched into the annals of time. His presence was as tangible as the chill that permeated the midnight air. A reminder of unresolved retribution and the fragile line between redemption and eternal damnation. Those who dared speak of him did so in hushed tones, as if summoning the restless spirits that roamed the abyss. Slowly, as if guided by the very hand of destiny, Evelyn began to piece together the fragmented memories of her family's past, each recollection intertwining with the haunting lore of the cursed cove. Old letters, faded portraits, and relics infused with cryptic energies painted a picture of a legacy steeped in quiet torment and unspoken deeds. It was as if every artifact within the mansion vibrated with the echoes of a forgotten era, urging her to confront the spectral forces that had defined her ancestors' fates. The slow, deliberate pace of her investigation allowed the gravity of the revelations to settle, each discovery an anchor tying her to the inexorable pull of history. The chill of the sea air mingled with the palpable sense of dread as Evelyn embarked on a solitary pilgrimage towards the cliffs where the supernatural and the terrestrial converged. Along the treacherous path, where every step seemed to awaken relics of the distant past, the rugged terrain itself felt like a living canvas of history and sorrow. Ancient stone markers and weathered statues stood as silent sentinels, guiding her along the winding trail to the forsaken cove. Each artifact, so carefully preserved by time's relentless march, testified to the enduring nature of legends and the depth of the haunted ties that bound this place to its tragic past. As the days folded into nights, the mystical powers of the cove began to assert themselves in subtle yet undeniable ways. Phantom lights dance on the horizon, their ethereal glow a silent call to those who had forgotten the old ways. Evelyn, ever attuned to the delicate rhythms of nature, sensed that these visions were not mere tricks of the light, but whispers from a realm where sorrow and redemption coexisted. With a mix of trepidation and resolve, she allowed her steps to be guided by these spectral luminaries, each flicker of light a reminder that her quest for truth was intertwined with the fate of a legacy that sought healing. In the midst of the relentless drizzle that blurred the line between night and day, the troubled spirit of Captain Silas Crow made his haunting presence known with a spectral intensity that both terrified and enthralled. His figure, neither fully corporeal nor entirely a figment of the past, emerged from the swirling mists with a resolute purpose that defied explanation. For those who had crossed paths with him, the encounter was less a moment of fear and more a communion with history, an invitation to understand the deep reservoirs of human sorrow, injustice, and a longing for redemption that transcended time and space. As the days grew darker and the fog thickened, the secrets hidden in the mansion and the surrounding cliffs began to unfurl like the pages of a long-forgotten tome. Evelyn found herself increasingly immersed in the rhythms of an age where superstitions reigned supreme, and every whispered legend carried the weight of unresolved grievances. The slow evolution of her understanding was both a burden and a blessing, a painful reminder of the hardships endured by those who had come before her, and an opportunity to reclaim the shards of a shattered past. In the hushed serenity of each dawn, she felt the quiet reassurance that even the deepest wounds held the potential for healing. Every step deeper into the mystery of Devil's Cove became a journey not only of discovery, but also of introspection. The silence of the rocky shores was punctuated by the distant murmurs of a spectral past, each echo resonating with the unyielding passage of time. The archaic markers and time-worn symbols carved into the cliffs served as silent guides, their cryptic meanings accessible only to those willing to grapple with the duality of light and shadow. In the interplay of the natural and the supernatural, Evelyn began to recognize the profound parallels between her internal struggles and the external forces that shaped the legacy of the cursed cove. Late one autumn evening, as the horizon burned with a transient yet vivid glow of crimson and gold, Evelyn paused to reflect on the journey that had led her to this haunted precipice. The fleeting beauty of the sunset, juxtaposed with the enduring sorrow of the land, stirred emotions long suppressed within her heart. In that solitary moment, the weight of expectations and the burdens of ancestral sins pressed heavily upon her spirit. The twilight became a symbolic threshold, a passage between the known and the unknown, where every whispered secret and unresolved grievance of the past beckoned her to delve deeper into the realm of the supernatural. Guided by the steady cadence of time and the unspoken legacies of those long gone, Evelyn's exploration took her to a secluded coastal cave rumored to be the repository of ancient lore. The cave, hidden behind a veil of tangled underbrush and weather-beaten boulders, seemed to pulse with an energy as old as the earth itself. Inside its stony embrace, the darkness was punctuated by shimmering reflections from droplets of water that traced the contours of time-worn carvings on the cave walls. There, she discovered symbols and inscriptions that recounted stories of lost hope, tragic misdeeds, and the eternal search for forgiveness in a world overshadowed by sorrow. The spectral presence of Captain Silas Crow grew ever more pronounced as Evelyn ventured deeper into the labyrinth of myth and memory. His relentless pursuit of retribution, wrapped in layers of regret and longing, was a constant reminder that every soul carried its own burden of past transgressions. Though his form was ephemeral, his influence was as forceful as the tempest that swept the coastline during the fiercest of storms. In the interplay between the relentless forces of nature and the spectral energies of the cove, she recognized the intricate tapestry of fate, a delicate balance between punishment and the possibility of ultimate redemption. With each passing day, the sinister charm of Devil's Cove wove itself further into Evelyn's psyche, drawing her into a maelstrom of introspection and quiet dread. The coastal winds, carrying faint echoes of ancient laments and distant prayers, seemed to whisper that the resolution to her personal torment lay hidden in the tangled skein of bygone tragedies. As she retraced the genealogical threads woven throughout her family's history, the slow pace of revelation allowed the emotional intensity to deepen. Every moment in the shadow of the cursed cliffs was both a reminder of mortal frailty and an invitation to confront the spectral forces that dictated the rhythm of life along these haunted shores. In a quiet corner of her ancestral estate, Evelyn devoted long hours to deciphering the cryptic passages of the old journal. The meticulously scrawled entries hinted at a convergence of fate, a destined meeting between the troubled spirit of Captain Crow and her own weary soul. With each carefully annotated passage, the pages revealed an intricate interplay of passion, regret, and the enduring need for penance that resonated deeply with her own hidden scars. The slow unraveling of these time-worn narratives ignited in her a newfound determination to address the unresolved anguish that had long cast a shadow over her family's legacy. As the nights grew longer and the spectral mists began their silent descent over the cliffs, the air of Devil's Cove became charged with an almost hypnotic intensity. The interplay between the haunting echoes of the past and the gentle murmur of the sea evoked reflections on human frailty and the timeless nature of despair. In these lucid moments of twilight, Evelyn found herself standing at the precipice of an emotional chasm, where every breath carried the legacy of forgotten souls, and every gust of wind whispered the secrets of redemption. The slow, deliberate pace of her discoveries allowed her to absorb the intricate layers of sorrow, hope, and the desperate yearning for absolution that defined this cursed land. Amid the ceaseless orchestration of crashing waves and the mournful cry of distant winds, the unresolved chapter of Captain Silas Crow's past began to merge inexorably with Evelyn's own journey. Each spectral encounter with the enigmatic figure served as a reminder of the treacherous duality between anguish and hope that lay at the heart of the legend. The ethereal form of the captain, though shrouded in mystery, exuded a palpable intensity, a yearning to right the wrongs of a life consumed by regret and vengeance. This ominous figure, ever present in the ruins of history, became a living emblem of the unresolved conflict between the mortal realm and an enduring supernatural legacy. The slow cadence of the unfolding narrative allowed the weight of tradition and prophecy to seep into every facet of Evelyn's quest. Every legend recounted by the villagers, every enigmatic symbol etched into the cliffs, and every whispered prayer of long-gone ancestors coalesced into a tapestry woven with threads of sorrow, conviction, and redemption. In the solemn twilight of the coastal wilderness, the promise of illumination softened the harsh contours of her haunted past. Every measured heartbeat was a testament to the power of silent resolve, a determination to face the relentless ghosts of yesterday and forge a path toward an uncertain but transformative future. As the tides of time ebbed and flowed with a rhythmic certainty, Evelyn's exploration of Devil's Cove led her to unexpected sanctuaries hidden within the rugged landscape. In secluded groves and beneath overhanging ledges, nature itself seemed to conspire with the spectral energies to reveal forgotten truths. Here, amidst the symphony of rustling leaves and the distant howl of the ocean wind, she uncovered relics of human passion and despair, a mosaic of memories that transcended the ephemeral boundaries of life and spirit. The languid progression of her investigation allowed her soul to immerse in the silent poetry of the haunted realm. In the lingering hours before dawn, when the veil between the living and the departed thinned imperceptibly, Evelyn encountered evidence that the supernatural forces shaping the cove were not solely driven by malevolence. Amid the ghostly apparitions, there emerged subtle hints of sorrow and longing for forgiveness, release, and the possibility of renewal. The spectral visage of Captain Crow, although fearsome in his retribution, occasionally revealed tender glimmers of remorse that belied a centuries-old pain. This recognition, soft yet profound, subtly altered her perception of his tormented existence, blending dread with a fragile hope for healing the anguish of the past. The journey through the ancient corridors of history, forever intertwined with the rugged, storm-tossed coastline, unfolded as a series of revelations, both gradual and transformative. As the moon ascended above the tumultuous sea, casting an ethereal glow upon the time-worn stones of the mansion and the cliffs beyond, Evelyn allowed herself to embrace a spectrum of emotions, nostalgia, regret, and a tenacious sense of purpose. Each moment under the spectral luminescence of the night sky deepened her resolve to bridge the chasm between a tormented past and a promise of eventual peace, no matter how arduous the path might be. The quiet desolation of Devil's Cove held within it a paradoxical beauty, one that was both haunting and achingly tender. Wandering through the narrow alleyways that connected the mansion to the open expanse of the coastline, Evelyn encountered relics of a forgotten era that resonated with quiet dignity and perpetual sorrow. Every etched carving on the weathered stone, every fragment of ancient pottery left to the mercy of time wove a tale of enduring attachment to a land cursed by misfortune, yet blessed with the potential for redemption. These subtle imprints of history spoke loudly in the silence, urging her to embrace the slow unraveling of her own destiny. As Evelyn's solitary quest advanced into the realm of night, the interplay between memory and myth deepened exponentially. The subtle rustling of leaves, the rhythmic lapping of the tide, and the occasional call of a distant night bird coalesced into a natural symphony, marking the passage of time in this otherworldly place. In the heart of the shadow-draped wilderness, where every moment suspended in melancholic reverie, she found herself reflecting on the delicate balance between mortal fragility and the unstoppable force of ancestral fate. With every measured breath, the legend of Captain Crow and the lingering secrets of the cursed cove became more intertwined with her own inner landscape, shaping her destiny with a quiet, inexorable power. In the stillness of a particularly hushed evening, the ghostly imprint of Captain Crow materialized once more against the backdrop of a storm-laden sky. The apparition, once a symbol of relentless retribution, appeared to possess an aura of tragic melancholy that transcended the mere desire for vengeance. The spectral figure's presence was a stirring confluence of sorrow, unresolved guilt, and a yearning for an absolution that had eluded him for centuries. As Evelyn watched the spectral silhouette fade into the darkness, she sensed that their intertwined fates carried the weight of ancient grievances, each ghostly encounter a delicate step toward a resolution that promised to mend the fractured tapestry of both their lives. The escalating tension of the investigation was tempered only by the profound introspection that had come to define Evelyn's journey. Amid the quiet solitude of the mansion, where the walls themselves seemed to murmur secrets of lost dreams, she spent restless nights poring over cryptic entries and ancestral narratives. Every word penned in fading ink unveiled layers of emotion that were as intricate as they were sorrowful, hinting at the possibility that even the most tormented souls harbored a fragile hope for redemption. In those moments of quiet revelation, the slow evolution of her understanding reinforced a simple truth: that healing the wounds of the past required embracing both the darkness of regret and the light of forgiveness. In the soft murmur of an approaching storm, the aged cliffs and churning sea bore silent testimony to the unyielding passage of time. Evelyn's determined steps along the narrow, winding paths mirrored the slow cadence of nature's eternal rhythm, a steady progression toward an unknown culmination. The echoes of ancient incantations and heartfelt laments, long consigned to the annals of folklore, resonated powerfully with the spirit of the land. With every measured footfall, the intangible connection between past and present grew ever more vivid, inviting her to reconcile with the spectral chapters that had defined both her family's destiny and that of the haunted shores. Under a starlit canopy, that stretched endlessly over the turbulent ocean, the enigmatic narrative of Devil's Cove began to crystallize into a saga of human frailty and spiritual metamorphosis. In the quiet solitude of her ancestral refuge, Evelyn meticulously recorded the slow, deliberate progress of her journey, each observation, each discovery, a crucial puzzle piece in the mosaic of a legacy steeped in sorrow. The silent stars bore witness to the delicate interplay between remorse and hope. As the spectral presence of Captain Crow emerged repeatedly to remind her that even in the darkest hours, the promise of redemption shone faintly like a distant beacon amid the night. With the relentlessness of the crashing waves and the rugged determination of the ancient cliffs serving as her constant companions, Evelyn felt an inexorable pull deeper into the heart of the cove's timeless mystery. The seasoned narrative of a land haunted not only by the vestiges of past misdeeds, but also by the promise of eventual atonement unfolded with quiet majesty. Every gust of salty air and every rustle amid the coastal ferns whispered of a destiny yet to be fulfilled. A destiny where the reconciliation of lost souls and fractured histories depended on understanding rather than retribution. It was a journey that demanded both courage and compassion, each step a measured act of bridging two disparate worlds. In the wake of innumerable spectral encounters, the pages of the ancient journal began to unravel, a convoluted history of sin, penance, and the transformative power of forgiveness. The weight of these revelations settled heavily on Evelyn's heart as she meticulously documented the events unfolding with a slow but steady narrative. Every carefully transcribed line testified to a legacy of regret and the persistent hope that time might ease the piercing sorrow of unrighted wrongs. The very air in the mansion seemed to vibrate with the quiet intensity of long-kept secrets. A solemn reminder that redemption was not a swift or simple process, but rather an intricate and ongoing journey. As an encroaching storm cast swirling shadows across the forlorn landscape, the spectral and the tangible converged in a dramatic interplay of light and darkness. In that charged atmosphere, where the ancient curse of Devil's Cove was palpable in every gust of wind and echo of the sea, Evelyn confronted the realization that her quest was far more than an investigation into the spectral. It had become a personal odyssey, a reconciliation of her own inner turmoil with the turbulent legacy of her ancestors. The slow but inexorable unfolding of history, marked by both heartache and the faint promise of healing, enveloped her with a resolute determination to restore balance to a world long steeped in sorrow. The fragile boundary between the physical realm and the spectral domain wavered as the storm's intensity reached its zenith, setting the stage for a deeply personal confrontation that had been years in the making. Evelyn found herself standing at the crossroads of destiny, where the lingering echoes of Captain Crow's anguish mingled with the silent yearnings of the past. The atmosphere was thick, with a poignant mixture of despair and quiet hope, as if the very forces of nature recognized the need to reconcile centuries-old grievances. In that moment, every sound, the sigh of the wind, the relentless crash of waves became a solemn chorus, urging a release from a cycle defined by unresolved sorrow. The desolation of the night was both merciless and strangely liberating for Evelyn, as she slowly gathered the shards of a legacy fractured by time and regret. Guided solely by intuition and an unwavering commitment to the truth, she retraced the ancestral footsteps that wound around the ancient cliffs. The slow evolution of this journey was marked by profound moments of introspection, where the merging of spectral lore and personal history cast a renewed light on the possibility of reconciliation. In the quiet aftermath of each tumultuous encounter, she found a sense of purpose that transcended the immediate darkness. An enduring belief that understanding and empathy could ultimately restore lost souls to their rightful place in the continuum of life. Amid the resounding echoes of nature's relentless symphony, every element of Devil's Cove coalesced to offer a narrative of timeless melancholy interwoven with fragile hope. In the sanctuary of her thoughts, Evelyn began to realize that the curse so often perceived solely as a harbinger of suffering also harbored the potential for profound healing. The slow, deliberate pace of her exploration allowed her to absorb the silent lessons imparted by the interplay of natural forces and spectral memories. In the distant roar of the sea and in the subtle, shifting shadows cast by the moon's pale glow, she discerned a message of forgiveness, one that could bridge the chasm between despair and the possibility of lasting peace. With a steadfast resolve that belied the inner tempest raging within her heart, Evelyn prepared for the inevitable climactic confrontation that awaited beneath the haunting silhouette of a neglected lighthouse. This storied monument, standing sentinel over the treacherous waters, had long borne witness to the restless murmurs of the past. Its time-worn walls and forlorn structure resonated with the voices of countless souls who had sought solace in its presence. As the night deepened, every step forward became not merely a physical journey into the unknown, but an immersive plunge into the labyrinth of ancestral sins and the hope of eventual absolution. At the quiet precipice where history and myth converged in a tapestry of sorrow, Evelyn's determination burned brighter than the most resilient flame. The lighthouse, once a beacon of guidance for weary mariners, now served as a solemn monument to the many lost souls whose stories were interlaced with the legacy of Devil's Cove. In the relentless pursuit of truth, she felt the inexorable pull of destiny drawing her closer to the secrets that had tormented her family for generations. Within the ruins and the whispering winds, each carefully unraveled mystery served as an invitation to reconcile with the past. An arduous journey that demanded both fortitude and the quiet grace of understanding. In the heart of that storm-swept night, beneath a canopy of swirling mists and the distant cry of the restless ocean, the final chapter of the spectral saga began to unfold with solemn gravity. As the spectral form of Captain Crow hovered near the ruins of the lighthouse, their eyes met in a silent communion of sorrow, regret, and an unspoken desire for redemption. The weight of their intertwined destinies, borne on the shoulders of countless generations, was palpable in the charged atmosphere. In that profound moment of reckoning, the past and the present wove together a narrative of quiet absolution, a promise that the cycle of haunting torment might yield to an embrace of understanding and empathy. As the first delicate hints of dawn began to pierce the veil of darkness, the relentless forces of fate and forgiveness converged to offer a final, poignant resolution to the narrative of Devil's Cove. The spectral tension that had defined the night began to subside, replaced by a gentle, reflective calm that promised new beginnings. Standing amidst the weathered stones of history, Evelyn felt an overwhelming sense of both closure and renewal. The journey had been long, laden with trials and revelations that forever altered the course of her own destiny and that of the Cursed Cove. In the soft glow of the emerging day, the legacy of sorrow began its gradual transformation. a quiet testament to the healing power of understanding and the enduring strength found in the unyielding pursuit of redemption.